What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Crew 2, and in this video I wanted to go over these street class bikes because I have a weird feeling nobody actually uses these, including myself, so I wanted to go over these once again. So I'm sure a lot of players know this, but the street bikes in this game are not going to be a very good option to use on many of the events because they have one huge flaw. They only do about 200 to 210 miles an hour. Literally every single one of them do not do over like 208 or 209, which is going to be kind of unfortunate when you have all the other street cars in this class doing 230 plus. So unfortunately the bikes can be considered kind of useless in some ways, and I did find them to be really fun to use. After using some of the bikes for a little while, I did notice that they do mix up the gameplay a lot and honestly make it really fun and kind of entertaining to use something different. Now, I'm not going to lie though, some of these bikes are not going to be that fun to use. For example, the Z1000, I really did not like that bike. We did have to ride that one a bit ago in that one summit, and my goodness, this bike really annoyed me. I did not like how this thing rode, and I just was really not enjoying it at all. I did notice some of the bikes are going to have better handling than other ones, which really does make a lot of sense considering they're all different in some way. For example, like the BMW Adventure bike here, or using something like the Indian Scout. Those bikes are going to handle a lot differently, and obviously handle way differently than like the KTM 450 Supermoto here. Things a lot lighter than an Indian, and obviously going to be a little bit quicker and all that stuff because of that. So the bikes are going to be a lot different to ride, but I did notice some are not going to be that fun to use if you guys did choose to use them in races. I would say the bikes in the street class are most likely going to be there to actually just like cruise around and have a good time with them, because I really have not seen many players using them at all in many of the events here. Now if you guys really wanted to, you could probably use some of the bikes on these shorter tracks like the Strip Special in Vegas. That would probably work, which is probably going to be the best way to race the street bikes on the Crew 2, because most of the smaller events would probably actually work because you don't have to worry about going insanely fast. Now, if you did want to do one of the longer events, I do think that's going to be a big issue because, well, all the bikes only do like 205 to 209 miles an hour, as I did mention before, so you're basically going to fall behind against every single street car in the game, which I do think is kind of unfortunate. We do have the touring bikes that luckily do like 250 to 260, so at least that did make up for that, but I know a lot of players are probably upset that we do not actually have like faster bikes in the street class, but I guess to a certain extent it kind of does make sense because most bikes stock in real life only do about 186, or at least the bigger ones do anyway. So to a certain extent, I guess it does make a lot of sense for the bikes to only do about 205 or so, because let's be honest, they're really right near what they actually would be going in real life. Now, can a bike actually go past 186 miles an hour? If you do like an ECU flash and some tuning and all that, many of the bigger bikes can obviously do well over that, but who actually wants to do speeds like that on a bike? But I would say this can kind of get frustrating in some ways when looking at summits, because I'm not going to lie guys, I've been wanting to try out some of the bikes on the summits, but you honestly really cannot use many of these on the bigger tracks because you're just going to fall behind in every single way. Like, if you're doing 205 miles an hour on some of the events, even like let's say the Flashback Japan, and then depending on the street car you guys might be running, the bikes are probably going to struggle around the corners as well, which I do think is kind of unfortunate because I've really not seen any players actually run these in any of the summits. Let me know in the comments below if you guys would like me to try that out and use like a street bike in one of the summits and see if I can still get a good score on it in Platinum, and or try to get like a good time compared to many of the other cars that will probably compete in it, because I barely see any bikes used at all in summits and or in general for that matter. Like, if you guys take a look at the leaderboards, you're probably not going to see many of the street bikes in there because most of them are just not fast enough, and or all of them for that matter are not going to be quick enough in any of the events to really keep up unless it's like a shorter track, and even then the cars will still probably beat you on many of the turns, which I do think is kind of annoying, but I guess it is what it is when it comes to the vehicles. But this is one of the things I was thinking about with like mixing races together, and to a certain extent it definitely can, but one way I could probably find this to work is, well, have the touring vehicles in there only and no street cars, because obviously the touring cars are going to be faster and you can still get money and parts and all that from the event. I think that would be a lot of fun and really mix it up, because I've seen a good amount of touring bikes, but not the actual street bikes because they're probably capped at 208. And you will most likely find yourself racing in one of these events pretty much maxed out at 208 while that person flies by you in a Lamborghini, which is honestly kind of funny but also kind of unfortunate. And you'll most likely be in one of the events trying to race and realize that you're maxed out in speed already, even though you're on a straightaway, and you're just sitting there doing 207 miles an hour listening to that bike redline, which is probably not going to be a sound you will constantly want to hear when using one of the bikes. And even with the Suzuki, which honestly the sound of that bike maxed out kind of annoys me a little bit, but if you guys might have been wondering though, you could easily use these bikes with like grinding out races and all that. There's no issues at all. I noticed all the bikes can win most of the events on Ace with no issues, even though some of them are very hard to ride, like the Ninja H2 and or the Z1000. If you guys do jump on those bikes, expect it to be like riding a wild refrigerator somewhere, because that's basically how they feel. I would recommend like the Honda CBR or the Ducati. I found those bikes to be really fun to use. Now imagine using like one of the MotoGP style bikes from the touring class, and then being able to jump into one of your favorite street events and actually getting money, followers, and parts and all that from it. I think that would be awesome. It really is kind of upsetting not seeing a lot of players use the actual street bikes in the game, because I'm not even going to lie, unless there was a summit that actually required you to use one of the bikes in the event, then I guess that would be a little bit different. But besides that, guys, I just do not see a point of running one of these street race bikes, because if you are actually like farming races and all that, trying to get money, follower, you know, parts and all that good stuff, you could pretty much just run a car of your choice, because they're all going to be faster, meaning you can actually complete the races quicker that way anyway, because no matter how you look at it, the bikes are most likely going to be slower on most of these street races compared to the cars, unless you guys do like one of these shorter ones. But even with some of the way the bikes handle, I still think this is going to be a bit of a challenge with many of the events on the Crew 2, because of the lower top speed on these bikes are going to put them at a big disadvantage on most of the bigger events, which is pretty unfortunate. But you guys could still run them on these smaller races and all that and probably still get a good time. But I really do want to know, guys, what do you think about the street race bikes in the comments below? I really haven't seen a lot of people use these, and I really do want to know what everyone thinks about them. Like maybe adjusting the top speed on the bikes just a little bit to make them more useful on competitive racing and or summits. I think that would be pretty awesome to see bikes start being used more in the summits and all that to really mix up the variety, but we'll have to wait and see what they actually do with them. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below about the bikes. Do you really think they need to be changed in some way? I think we can all agree that to a certain extent, they probably do need to be tweaked just a little bit. But thank you all so much for watching.